board. So what we at ROEC are doing, we're trying to map out this SMR ecosystem, this nascent SMR ecosystem. We're trying to understand who is doing what. And as I was saying this morning, there are many angles to look at SMRs through engineering lenses, through commercial, economic lenses, through technology lenses. So everyone looks at it, but through a different angle. However, in my presentation today, in the slides that I have prepared, I will present some sort of a framework that I hope, will be helpful for those, especially who are at their first contact with this topic. So not because we have people with different backgrounds in the room. You know, some some are nuclear engineers and know a lot about this topic. Others less so. So we have mapped out at this point, in fact, the International Atomic Energy Agency has mapped out 83 SMR designs. In terms of proposals, there are more. There are maybe over 100 such proposals, but these are, let's say, the ones considered more advanced. And it's interesting that they are grouped in several categories. So there are 83 in total, but 25 are based, so the technology matters. How do you cool the reactor? So for me, personally, this was important to understand that some reactors are cooled, like water-cooled, water-cooled based reactors. These can be for land use, so land-based, or can be, for marine-based. So for what we were talking this morning, the propulsion systems for submarines or for aircraft carriers. So they come from that branch of experience with this. Then there are about 17 high temperature gas cooled. So cooling is done with, so not water, right? The same goes for the liquid metal cooled fast neutron spectrum. Mr. Konstantin has touched a little bit upon that this morning. So there, the reactor is not cooled with water. In the case of high temperature gas cooled gas, so they use gases, for instance, helium. They cool it through liquid metal, in this other case. So these are the big categories in which cooled with water and then non-water. And then there are also the molten salt ones. And then there are also some 12 microreactors which can use technology water-based for cooling or, non-water-based. So you can have a microreactor that uses some other type of cooling. Which is what is called generation 4. A little bit through the content that I will run. SMR designs, reactor types, the size, some old versus new uses, and some of the countries that have already done it. For instance, if we're talking about SMRs, there are only 2 SMRs in the world that are commercially operational. And that belongs to China, and the other one belongs to Russia. The United States has somewhat, is a little bit behind in this race in the sense that they have ceded some of this ground to the to the other 2 countries, China and Russia, which developed this technology with the help of, let's say, state-owned companies. So the United States is trying to catch up on this development and is investing and supporting the development of new, especially they say, advanced nuclear technology. Then I will tell you a little bit about Canada, a little bit about Czech Republic's approach, and I grouped them there because I will talk more high level, because these 2 countries have SMR roadmaps, both Canada and the Czech Republic. So they have a specific policy document on how they want to deploy and how they want to go about SMRs. A little bit about France and its most advanced reactor developed by Électricité de France, and a little bit about what the UK is doing. So this is what I will talk about. So water cooled versus liquid cooled versus, but they all fall, we talk about generation 3 are the water cooled ones versus the generation 4 that are non-water cooled ones. Basically generation 3 or 3 plus are the ones that are light water reactors. They can be pressure reactors, so PVRs, pressurized water reactors, or they can be BVRs, boiling water reactors. Generation 4, when you hear about molten salt reactors, metal-cooled reactors like the lead one that was presented, Project Alfred, that's generation 4. or the sodium-cooled, or you will hear natrium-cooled, because sodium, natrium is the same thing. Natrium is the Latin name. For instance, the SMR developed by TerraPower, which is, I call it also the Bill Gates SMR, because that's his company. So that's generation 4 versus generation 3, where there is a lot of experience based on the large conventional nuclear power plants. Size matters. And if you look at the definition used by International Atomic Energy Agency, the World Nuclear Association, or the US Nuclear Energy Institute, they say SMR is a reactor with a capacity of 300 megawatts or less. But there are exceptions to this definition. And the exception is the Rolls-Royce SMR, which exceeds the 300. It's 470 megawatts capacity, but it's still considered a small modular reactor. Or this TerraPower SMR, the Bill Gates SMR, which is also over 300, so it's 345 megawatts, electric megawatts, or megawatts of electricity. Then there is this category of what do we consider micro reactors? Designs with a unit capacity of less than 10 megawatts, so more than 1 megawatt, but less than 10 megawatts. But I have seen also some people include in this category reactors with a capacity of up to 20 or 30. Some also consider these are microreactors. These are more mobile than the larger SMRs. They typically are not based on the light water technology, but on the more advanced ones typically. So they include generation 4 technologies and have a wide range of technological approaches, but mostly are in the early design stages, with the exception of this project, US Aurora, which has almost 2 megawatts electric, and it builds on the prototypes that come from the US space program, for instance, Aurora. Next one. If we talk about the different uses, the old use, we use nuclear to generate electricity, and as we were saying in the morning, for marine propulsion. So these are the old uses. What are the new uses? We talk about using nuclear-produced electricity to desalinate seawater, or to produce hydrogen, or to co-generate electricity plus heat. For instance, Poland was interested specifically in this function, electricity, but specifically heat generation. So these are the new uses. Here is a slide about, with some details about the China's operational SMR. They call it HTRPM, high temperature gas cooled modular pebble bed reactor, first of a kind, because again, when we are talking about Deutsche, this too is supposed to be a first of a kind. So Deutsche, the new scale, the Voyager. First commercially operational modular NPP with 4th generation technology. Now you know what 4th generation means. So it's a demonstration power plant. It was connected to the grid in December 2021, commercial operation December 2023. So it's not been in, let's say, commercial operation for that long. It's still the beginning of this. It has 2 units of 210 megawatts electric, and this is megawatts thermal. Yeah, so electric each. Uses uranium enriched up to 8.5%. Fuel loading is done through these pebbles, like spherical elements, which have the size of a tennis ball and contain about 7 grams of enriched uranium. This is important, enriched to 8.5%, because the conventional nuclear power plants use uranium, so for the light water ones, right? So the ones whose reactor is cooled with the help of water, they use uranium enriched up to 5%, slowly below 5%. Here you see, so generation 4, this Chinese SMR uses uranium enriched up to 8.5. The background, so it took a long way for the Chinese to get to the point of December to 2021 and to operational capacity December 23. They started in the early 90s with a research reactor located at one of their universities. They conducted some tests. It was the initial version HTR-10. And then they started work on this HTR-PM in 2012. So almost 30 years to get to the point of having a commercially operational SMR. And 2021, they achieved first criticality. That means the nuclear reaction is self-sustainable. Russia's SMR. But again, this is not the only one. Aside from the SMR that is functional, China also has other SMRs in development, with some of them based on, water technology, so water cooled. And they have planned dates of operation 2026, 2027, 2028. But because these are based on technology that we know a lot about, so reactors cooled with the help of water. Russia's SMR. This is what you see here is Academic Lomonosov. Academic Lomonosov, which is, they say it's the world's first floating nuclear power plant. Started commercial operation in 2020, has this type of reactor, pressurized water reactor, PVR, which builds on their knowledge of nuclear-powered icebreakers and the reactors used for their nuclear-powered icebreakers fleet. It has a capacity of 2 units, 30 megawatts electric each. Uranium dioxide, this is what they use pellets, fuel enrichment of 18.6. Yeah, so much more than the conventional big nuclear power plants. And the fact that the fuel is enriched up to 18.6% actually gives them a longer refueling cycle. If you talk about the low enriched uranium, that gives you a refueling cycle of 1 year, 1 year and a half, 2 years. But because it's enriched up to 18.6, you can extract, you can last for longer. Yeah. Design life 40 years. Again, long road for the Russians as well. They started in 98. You remember it was a difficult period for Russia economically. Then they revived the project in 2006. Oil prices were going up. So it was a good time to devote attention also to the nuclear projects. So they select then Pevek Chukotka in the Far East as the site for the final destination. They start building it in the Baltic factory, Baltijski Zavod, start testing and commission the first floating power unit, which is finalized in 2017. Then 2018, they tow this vessel for about 4,000 kilometers around Finland and Sweden to Murmansk, where they load the fuel, achieve criticality in November 2018. And then in 2019, they complete the second leg of the journey, another almost 5,000 kilometers to the Arctic port of Pevek, where it's connected to the grid in December. So 2020, fully commissioned in May, and now supplies the heat to the town of Pevek and electricity to the regional Chaon-Bilbino power system. So this is the Russian and the Chinese SMRs that are the only ones in the world currently operationally, in commercial operation. United States. But again, going back to the Russians. So this is what is commercially operation. The Russians have about 5 or 6 designs, water-cooled reactor, marine-based. So they focus the new designs of SMRs, and they base it on their marine experience. So what the reactors they have built for the marine propulsion. But most of them based on light water technology. So reactor based on water cooling. United States, we have about 22 more advanced SMR designs, and now you know what. No. Now you know what water-cooled means, right? That's third generation 3+, land-based. Voyager, this one, yeah. This is exactly how it looks, NuScale. Developed by NuScale, BVR X300 developed by Hitachi and GE, General Electric and Hitachi, so American-Japanese cooperation. Boiling water reaction, they say generation X comes from 10th generation and 300. Then you have Holtec, Westinghouse, SMR. Then you have some other. But this is technology that is based on water-cooled, so land-based. I haven't been able to identify any SMR that's water-cooled but marine-based, for instance. Maybe it exists, but we haven't come across it. Then high-temperature gas-cooled ones. This is the most, let's say, famous and receives more press recently. Then we have the liquid metal-cooled ones, including the one from TerraPower. Then the molten salt ones, developed by this company. So in the parentheses, you have the company. And some microreactors, the Aurora one, which is, again, in pre-licensing phase. what I want to say here is that probably the Voyager and NuScale's technology has received a lot of press coverage and attention from the press. Then we know, and the press covers a lot, this natrium reactor, which is developed by TerraPower, so Bill Gates, but it's not only Bill Gates, because you have Bechtel, who's the EPC contractor, engineering procurement construction contractor for this project. You have Berkshire Hathaway, which is one of the investors, and if this natrium or sodium reactor proves feasible, they want to deploy 5 more in US alone, pretty fast. Actually, in terms of this Bill Gates natrium sodium reactor, TerraPower's SMR, they broke new ground 2 weeks ago. They started construction and working on the construction side, but the non-nuclear side, because they will have to wait for approval from the regulator, for the American regulator, to start working on the nuclear part of the SMR. And their reactor is interesting because it has 345 megawatts of electricity output capacity, but because they combine it with a molten salt storage system, they can push the electricity production to 500 megawatts. And one other thing that I found interesting about the small modular reactors is their function, for instance, to load follow. I think it was mentioned in the first panel as well. That means to moderate the electricity output so that you achieve integration of nuclear power production with renewables. And this is something that including Voyager, so NuScale, provides in its technical specifications. They say that this reactor is capable to follow the load. Next, Canada. Canada has had this unique approach to creating and to develop an SMR roadmap. They started in 2017. They had about 10 months of consultations. They engaged with all the stakeholders. And from that consultation, 10 months long, this roadmap is the result. And then they added an SMR action plan, and they have progress reports every 2 years in which they say, they see who was supposed to do what and what was done. They actually have 3 tracks, and they have looked and have done literature review for about 100 projects, and then they have narrowed it down to 6. 2 SMRs per each track, because they said we in Canada can use SMRs for on-grid power generation to phase out coal, so practically to replace with SMRs coal-fired power plants that we have to decommission. And here, this is the average size they're looking at, 340 megawatts, let's say, on average. And they have identified opportunities, 29 units located at 17 facilities. The other track is on and off-grid cogeneration for heavy industry, specifically for oil sands producers and remote mines that could benefit from heat and power generation. Why? For instance, oil sands producers in Canada use the SAGD technology. That's acronym for steam-assisted. The other 2 I can't remember, but they basically inject steam in the oil sands, which are heavily bituminous, and they lower the viscosity and are able to extract with the use of steam that they pump into the oil sands and into the reservoirs. They are able to extract oil. So that's why oil sands producers use a lot of heat, industrial heat, for oil production, because these are heavily to extract heavy resources. So they think that they can use small 20, 50 megawatts electric or medium-size megawatts for this need of theirs. And they already have identified oil sands production sites, 96 facilities, heavy industry sites, 85, off-rig mines, 24. So very methodical in their approach. They go directly with the end use, and they want to engage the customers, the end customers. So then we have the third track, off-grid power district. DH comes from district heating, destermoficare. Desalination. This use, they are looking at it for remote communities, which use a lot of diesel right now, and heating oil, which is polluting, of course, and they would like to replace that. So for this need, they need microreactors that produce more than 1 megawatt. So that's why microreactors for the northern indigenous communities, and they have identified 79 such communities. our friends in Central and Eastern Europe, Czech Republic, has published an SMR roadmap in November 2023, so a couple of months ago, so it's fresh from the oven. What they say, because this is extracted from this strategy, they say that they prefer to go with a light water SMR because it's a priority from a legal perspective. Why? Because they already have developed the regulatory framework for light water reactors, for the big power plants. So, for the SMRs, probably some regulatory adjustment amendments still need to be done. So they prefer to rely on the regulatory framework that regulates light water reactors already. So this is the companies that they are looking at. Again, NuScale, our Voyager, Holtec International American, the American-Japanese cooperation, EDF France, which develops this reactor together with their Atomic Commission, Naval Group, and these other companies, Tractebel Engineering. And then they look at the Rolls-Royce SMR, which is also called the UK SMR. So when you hear UK SMR, that's Rolls-Royce. And then another one from Korea. I have extracted some technical details that I found interesting for me, but of course there are many more. They have all these technical files and specifications. But again, you see light water, refrigerant, moderate, light water, all of them. Because for them, light water reactors are a priority. Fuel enrichment, again, less than 5%, 4%, 3.5, less than 5. So low enriched uranium, fuel change cycle. And this is related, remember, with the Russian reactor, I was saying it's up to 18% and 36 months. Well, you have low enriched uranium, you can get a year and a half or 2 years. 1 year, 2 years at most. Service life. Long service life for SMRs. And this is one of their advantages, and I don't think we talk enough about how long these reactors can last. Because if we compare them with how long, let's say, wind power plant or solar power plant, the lifetime, up to about 20 years, 60 years. You can get 60 years of lifetime, 80 years. This is what the producers are saying. Scenarios. The Czech Republic has discussed what to do. Scenario 1, they say, we purchase something done outside Czech Republic. But so no involvement from the Czech industry. Scenario 2, we'll produce something in Czech Republic. We want to supply some parts of the equipment. Scenario 3, we want to develop a Czech SMR, our national design. This would be easiest because you don't have to worry. Someone else takes care of the manufacturing and licensing. This haven't come up, and the discussions with them, let's say, international manufacturers didn't lead to any materialization of this building part of SMRs in the Czech Republic by Czech manufacturers so far. So, and this would take a very long time because these are generation 3 SMRs in Czech Republic, small ones, you see, megawatts electric, less than 50. So generation 3, water cooled. Generation 4, I can't give you more details about each one of them. All I know is that they're in very early stages of development. And if you want to deploy generation 3, you can do this faster because it's light water technology. A lot of knowledge, expertise exists in this area. So this can be deployed in the 2030s, right? If you want an SMR generation 4, Czech Republic says in its strategy, we're looking probably at 2040. They have evaluated some potential sites, including siting this at existing nuclear power plants, because then you have already all the regulatory permitting under authorization work already is done for the big nuclear power plants. So some of them, some countries think, including Czech Republic, to site them where the big NPPs are already present. It simplifies the work. Next one. This slide is just, I wanted to present you a little bit about the French SMR, new word it's called. Again, water-cooled, land-based, right? So generation 3+. These are the developers, coolant, light water, 2 units, 170 megawatts electric. So the entire thing would be 340. They use uranium oxide fuel enrichment, again, less than 5%. Storage capacity of spent fuel. So this I extracted from the technical presentation of this new word SMR. what they want to use it to replace fossil fuels for remote municipalities, for energy-intensive industrial sites. So it resembles what the Canadians have listed in terms of new application potential. Again, when you look and when we talk about these SMRs, another word jumps. Multi-purpose SMRs. So we don't talk only about electricity production. We talk about heat production, district heating, water desalination, hydrogen production. So multi-purpose SMRs. Again, base load and load following capability. So they can supply in base load or they can follow the load. I think this is an extraordinary feature, and I think we should stress it more in our public discussion. It would be located below ground, semi-buried, for instance. Here is a manufacturer that designed it with this in mind from the very beginning. Licensing status, pre-licensing. First of a kind would be built in France, and the French government already agreed to this, and they would like to start building it by 2030. Of course, they received funding through some government plans, France's reindustrialization plan, some EU money recently. They also received a grant. But this one, at least the way I perceive it, is much more behind in terms of on the TRL scale than NuScale. NuScale and Voyager, this one, is TRL 8. So the only thing that the Voyager NuScale is missing is the first of a kind plant. Here, the French are still in the basic design phase, 2023, 2026. So they are behind the American model. And a few words, and this is my last slide, about the United Kingdom. They have a civil nuclear roadmap published earlier this year in February or March, in which they say that they want to reach 1/4 of energy from nuclear by 2050. They have this great British nuclear government body that is responsible to deliver this nuclear renaissance. So it's responsible for as in Poland's case, with delivering the big power plants as well as the SMRs. And they are, as also Jacob mentioned it in the first panel, in the middle of the selection process. So right now, they haven't decided yet. So they launched in April last year a competitive process to select SMR technologies to see which one, is better placed to be operational by mid-2030s. And they want to select 2 such SMR projects for a final investment decision by 2029. They invited in October of last year 6 companies to tender: EDF Energy, so you saw the new word, reactor model, then GE Hitachi Nuclear, then Holtec, Britain, NuScale, again we see NuScale, so Voyager, this one, Rolls-Royce SMR, the UK SMR, and Westinghouse Electric UK Limited. June, actually, was the deadline, and is the deadline, to submit tender responses, and then they'll go into assessment by this body and negotiation, and then they submit again final tenders, and later this year they will announce who the successful bidders are, who of these 6, who will be the 2 selected for progress. So this is part of the framework that I have built because it helped me to understand better and equipped me with the tools to how to navigate and then to understand the whole discussion about SMRs. What's generation 3 versus generation 4? What's water-cooled versus cooled through liquid metal or sodium, like Bill Gates SMR. Thank you for your attention.